Good evening and a very warm welcome to everyone present this evening. Today's session marks the 69th meeting conducted by the study circle. The topic for today is willful defaulters and overview, and our resource person for the day is Mrs. V. Rajeshwari, an advocate and an ex-bank. I call upon Mr. Murthy Kandaswamy, an advocate, to give the welcome address and a brief introduction of the speaker.
On behalf of Study Circle, it's my pleasure to welcome Mrs. V. Rajeshwari, Advocate Chennai, to address and enlighten us on the given topic, willful defaulter and overview. I assure that our speaker would be one of the apt person to deal with today's topic because of the reason that she has very rich knowledge and experience in the field of banking law. Our speaker practiced law from 1992 to 1996, and during May 1996 joined as a law officer in Bharat Overseas Bank and became IOBN upon merger of Bharat Overseas Bank with Indian Overseas Bank. During her service in the bank, she had been a driving force of many litigations of the bank. She had contributed a lot in Indian Bankers Association while she was in service. In 2019, when she was working as chief manager in the Department of Trust Asset Management, Central Office, Chennai, she took voluntary retirement and relieved from services during October 2019. Immediately thereafter, she started practicing law, focusing on banking laws in DRTs, DRAT, and insolvency laws in NCLT. Our speaker's expertise in the field of banking law is self-explanatory if we read the papers submitted by her on various subjects of banking law. Her contribution in Indian Bankers Association are highly regarded in banking sector. Apart from these, our speaker is also writing articles in online legal platforms, including Live Law. With this small intro, I invite our speaker of the day to enlighten us on the topic, willful defaulter and overview. Over to the speaker.
Good evening, everyone. First, let me thank the Senior Counsel, Mr. Om Prakash sir, for giving me an opportunity to address in this prestigious platform. I thank Advocate Siva Shanmugam sir for coordinating with me for the event. I thank all the participants in advance for a patient hearing. Coming to the topic, it is about willful defaulters. It is primarily a banker's subject, but of late, there are several litigations initiated by the parties who are declared as willful defaulters by banks in various high courts. Some issues have been settled by the Honorable Supreme Court, and a few are yet to be taken up in appeal. Now, the subject of willful defaulter is known to the industry after the concept of non-performing asset was introduced by the Reserve Bank of India. In earlier days, the credit was security-based, and later it has become need-based, keeping the projected income as the basis. Non-performing asset was introduced by RBI in 1992. In those days, when an account was irregular for a period of 1 year, the account was treated as NPA. And later, when the account, after some period, years, the irregularity period was reduced to 180 days. And in due course, at present, the norms are that if an account remains irregular for 90 days, it will be treated as non-performing asset as per the prudential norms of Reserve Bank of India. Now, side by side, when the Reserve Bank of India introduced the NPA concept, banks started identifying NPAs and started filing cases in civil courts, which was there in those days. When the courts were piled up with a lot of cases, DRT Act came into force in 1993. And SARFAESI Act was introduced in 2002. And now we have IBC also from December 2016. To suit the requirements, various amendments are made to these laws, and these laws relate to recovery and resolution. But it was in this context and scenario of an ongoing process of reforms that the concept of willful defaulter also was introduced by RBI. This was driven by the Central Vigilance Commission. The Central Vigilance Commission advised the Reserve Bank of India to call for data on willful defaulters from April 1999 from banks and financial institutions. Then Reserve Bank of India constituted a working group on willful defaulters, and the report given by the group formed the foundation for making a circular by the Reserve Bank of India, and it was circulated to all the banks. In that circular, the procedure for identifying a borrower as a willful defaulter was clearly laid down. But over years, the guidelines and procedures for identification or classification as willful defaulters evolved. Now, the present latest circular, which is in force, is dated 1/7/2015. After the banks identify a borrower or a guarantor as willful defaulter, they will circulate it to the credit information companies recognized by the Reserve Bank of India. Now we will see a few important salient features of the RBI guidelines by way of circular dated 1/7/2015. These guidelines are applicable to all scheduled commercial banks, excluding regional rural banks and all India notified financial institutions. Then, what is an act of willful default as per the RBI guidelines? That is, if a borrower fails to repay the dues, he fails to meet the repayment obligations, coupled with any of these. That is, one, when he has the capacity to repay, but he is not paying. That is one. Number two, he has not utilized the finance from the lender for specific purpose for which finance was availed, but he diverted the funds for his purposes. That is number two. Then he siphoned off the funds so that the funds have not been utilized for specific purposes for which finance was availed of, nor are the funds available in the unit in the form of other assets. Or he has disposed of or removed the movable fixed assets or immovable assets, securing a term loan without the knowledge of the bank, that is the lender. The definition of the borrower means it includes all individuals, juristic persons, all other form of business enterprises, whether they are incorporated or not. In case of business enterprises, other than the companies, the persons who are in charge and responsible for the management of the affairs may have to be reported in the event of any act of willful default found by a banker. Now, what is the position regarding a company? As regards the company, there are two types of directors: promoter directors, non-promoter directors. As regards non-promoter, non-whole-time directors, Reserve Bank is very strict in the guideline, saying that unless he is an officer on default, as per the Companies Act, he cannot be held liable under these guidelines to be classified as a willful defaulter. Then, what are the categories of directors who are liable to be classified under the RBI guidelines? Whole-time director, key managerial personnel, or when there is no key managerial personnel, such director or directors as specified by the respective board of directors. Then every director who is aware of contravention of provisions of Companies Act and has not raised any objections, or where such contravention had taken place with his consent or connivance. Therefore, except in very rare cases, a non-whole-time director should not be considered as willful defaulter unless it is conclusively proved, established that he was aware of the fact of willful default by the borrower, or the willful default has taken place with his consent or connivance. Then it has to be noted that the exception that non-promoter and all will not apply to a promoter director. Even if he is not a whole-time director, if he is a promoter director, he will be liable to be classified as a willful defaulter. Then we have now seen what are the acts constituting willful default. Out of that, diversion of funds is a main, diversion of funds and siphoning of funds are the main items. What constitutes diversion of funds? There are many examples to say, but case to case it will differ. We will see a few examples. Before that, what RBI has given us as diversion of funds, what it has defined as diversion of funds: utilization of short-term working capital funds for long-term purposes, which is not in conformity with the loan sanction. Then deploying the borrowed funds for purposes or activities or creation of assets other than those for which the loan was sanctioned. Then transferring the borrowed funds to its subsidiaries or sister companies or group companies or other corporates by whatever modalities. Then routing of funds through any bank other than the lender bank. Suppose the borrower has borrowed from A bank, but he is routing all transactions through B bank. It is diversion of fund. Then investment in other companies by way of acquiring equities. The borrower himself may float a different company without the knowledge of the banker, or the members, he will invest in some other company floated by some other third party, which is not without the knowledge of the lender bank. Then shortfall in deployment of the funds when compared with the amounts disbursed. The difference he has to account for, otherwise it will tantamount to diversion of funds. He has to explain the difference. Any one of these activities, any one or more, will become an act of willful default under the RBI guidelines. Then what constitutes siphoning of funds? If any funds borrowed from a bank or a financial institution is utilized for purposes unrelated to the operation of the borrower, to the detriment of the financial health of the company or the lender, such action is construed as siphoning of funds. Any particular instance whether tantamounts to siphoning of funds is left to the judgment of the lenders as per the RBI guideline. It is based on the objective facts and circumstances of the case. If you see, diversion and siphoning of funds only has a subtle difference. Diversion means straight diversion of funds for some other purpose. Siphoning means if particular amount is not accounted for, how it has gone, where it has gone out of the system, that is siphoning of funds. We will see a few examples. Suppose the entity booked profits for the previous year. As per its annual statements, we can find out whether the entity made profits or not. But once they make the profit and fail to pay the dues to the bank, it is an act of willful default. Then the unit of the company is running, but the transactions are not routed through the account with the bank. Then it is diversion. Then the borrower tries to sell his personal assets, and the proceeds he is not using to repay the dues to the bankers. Instead, he is diverting for some other purposes and rendering the account to become irregular. Then it is an act of willful default. Then the borrower diverted the revenue generated out of his business to buy more assets for the business entity or himself instead of repaying the dues. This is an act of diversion. Then the borrower opens account with some other bank without obtaining the prior consent of the lender bank with an intent to defeat the lender's right to recovery. Then this is again a diversion of funds. The borrower sells the stocks but does not route the sale proceeds through the account maintained with the lender meant for the same. Then another example is the borrower sells the hypothecated machinery or the mortgaged property without bank's knowledge and does not route the sale proceeds through the bank account. He does not pay the dues out of the sale proceeds. Then any debit transactions in the account, either unexplained or not related to the business, is again siphoning of funds. The borrower transferred funds to its sister concern in the course of business without any reason. These are some of the examples. Suppose he produces any bills or invoices which are found to be forged. They also amount to act of willful default. These are only examples we have seen. It is not exhaustive. So on case-to-case basis, it will differ. Then on what basis the bankers decide a person as a willful defaulter? There should be a document for any such kind of decision. The documentary proof is very important. What are the types of documentary proof the bankers may have? A few examples we can see, because documentary proof is there, but the RBI guidelines do not clearly say these are the documentary proof. It will differ from case to case. Suppose a stock audit report of the bank, that is a comparison of stock availability of the previous year and this year. There is a huge difference. That difference is not accounted by the borrower. Then it is a documentary proof for the bank. Then any investigative audit report of an external agency, if it shows any act of willful default, then it can be relied upon. Then the transaction audit report, then the statement of loan account over a period of time, evidencing unrelated transactions. Then books of account of the borrower, evidencing sales for huge amount but the transactions are diverted. They are not routed through the bank in which he has borrowed. Then it is another documentary proof. Suppose there is a dispute between the borrower and the guarantor, and either of them file a complaint, criminal complaint against the other, and the police makes an investigation and they register an FIR, and the FIR shows any kind of act of willful default, that will also be taken as a documentary proof for the purpose. Then some forged invoices, bills of lading, any other forged documents, or suppose the borrower is trying to sell out his mortgaged property and any sale agreement is there to produce as an evidence, then it is a documentary proof. Again, these are only examples and it has to be taken on facts and circumstances of each case. What is the cutoff limit for classifying the borrower or a guarantor as a willful defaulter? Should all the borrowers be classified as willful defaulter if they commit the act of willful default? No, it is based on the amount. If the amount due is more than 25 lakhs or more, then only they will come under the purview of this RBI circular. So the cutoff limit is 25 lakhs and above. Then what about applicability of the RBI guidelines to a guarantor? We have to see meticulously here. RBI has recognized in the circular section 128 of Indian Contract Act 1872. The liability of the surety is coextensive with that of the principal debtor unless it is otherwise provided in the contract. Therefore, when a default is made in making repayment by the principal debtor, the liability of the guarantor is immediate. In case the said guarantor refuses to comply with the demand made by the creditor, that is a banker, despite having sufficient means to make the payment of dues, such guarantor would also be treated as a willful defaulter. These provisions, again, there are two groups there RBI is identifying. That is, guarantors belonging to the same group, guarantors not within the same group. Belonging to the same group of company means he should be a part of the management, which is managing the day-to-day affairs of the company. Then you can call him as a group guarantor. Then if the guarantor is a third person and he is not forming part or he is an independent director, he is only given a guarantee, he is not part of the management of the day-to-day affairs of the company, then he is not a group guarantor. Suppose he is a group guarantor, irrespective of the date of guarantee, he can be held liable under this circular. Suppose he is a non-group guarantor, he is an independent director, he is given only a guarantee, and a third person has given only a guarantee. He is not a part of the management of the affairs of the company at all. Then we have to see the date of guarantee. Under this circular, only if the guarantee was given subsequent to 9th September 2014, he can be held liable under this RBI guidelines. We have to see if a guarantor is made willful defaulter, two things we have to see is whether he is a group guarantor or a non-group guarantor. If he is a non-group guarantor, what is the date of guarantee obtained at the time of obtained by the banker? If it is before 9th September 2014, he cannot be held liable under this RBI guidelines. Then we will see the various stages how the banks classify a person as a willful defaulter. There are 4 stages. And it involves 2 committees of the bank. One is identification committee. That comes first. It is called the first committee or the identification committee. This is constituted with the executive director of the bank as its chairman, with 2 senior officials, either general managers or deputy general managers, as the other 2 members of the committee. This committee will sit and examine the act of willful default as provided by the bank with the documentary proof. The evidence of act of willful default on the part of the borrowing company and its promoters, guarantors, whole-time directors at the relevant time should be examined by the committee. Then once it examines and finds that there is an act of willful default committed by these people, the next stage comes. That is issuance of show cause notice. If the committee concludes that an event of willful default has occurred, the committee shall issue a show cause notice to the concerned borrower and the promoter, whole-time director, guarantor, all the persons. And then here we have to see the relevant part of RBI circular, that is para 3B, which says if the committee concludes that an event of willful default has occurred, it shall issue a show cause notice. Then if you literally construe these words, it means that the show cause notice has to be issued by the committee only. It is pertinent to note that Calcutta High Court in 2 judgments recently pronounced, they have held that the show cause notice should be issued by the identification committee members only and it should not be delegated because the word says it shall issue. Stress was given on the words it. Then it has to be seen whether there is a clear mention in the show cause notice about the act of the default, stressing that such act squarely falls under the provisions of the RBA guidelines. Mere mention of the words in the RBA circular is not sufficient. It has to be clearly stated what is the sort of willful default the borrower has committed and the basis for arriving at a conclusion to issue a show cause notice. Then comes the third stage, that is issuance of the order by the identification committee. First, the show cause notice is issued, giving a time period for the parties to give a reply. Suppose the parties give a reply, the representation has to be placed before the identification committee again. Then the committee will peruse the representation. Then, after seeing that also, based on the documentary proof already available, the committee will decide whether to give a personal hearing or not. Under these RBA guidelines presently in force, it is left to the discretion of the identification committee to give a personal hearing or not. Suppose the committee decides that a personal hearing need not be given because there is sufficient proof for declaring the parties as willful defaulters, then they will go ahead with the decision without according a personal hearing. Then once such a decision has been made, they have to record the reason for so doing, why they have not accorded a personal hearing. Then there is a recent judgment by the Bombay High Court in this regard, which we will discuss in due course when we discuss on the judgments on this topic. Then once the orders are passed, it has to be communicated to the parties soon after it is passed by the identification committee. This is based on another Supreme Court judgment, which also we will discuss in due course. Passing of orders by the committee is not the end of the matter because there is one more stage, that is review and confirmation by a review committee of the bank, only after which the order passed by the identification committee will become final. Mostly what happens, the order of the identification committee is not communicated to the parties because it is not final. But as I told you, the Supreme Court in a recent judgment insisted that order of the first committee has to be communicated to the parties. Okay, then next, the fourth stage comes, that is review of the orders passed by the identification committee by the review committee of the bank. The review committee is constituted by the bank only if an act of willful default is established and accepted by the identification committee. Then the review committee consists of, it is headed by the chairman and managing director of the bank with 2 independent directors as other members of the committee. The role of the review committee will be like this. That is, they have to see whether the borrower and guarantor have committed any act of willful default as enumerated in the RBA circular, and it has a proof by way of any documentary proof. Whether the identification committee was right in arriving at the decision without according personal hearing and proper reasons are recorded for the same. Even if the decision of the committee was after the personal hearing, then also the review committee should verify thoroughly about the correctness of the decision and should be satisfied about the same. Whether the borrower and guarantor were communicated with the orders of the identification committee with an advice to submit their written representation, if any, to the review committee within a specified period. This also has to be examined by the review committee. Then, if the borrower and guarantor have submitted their written representation to the review committee, then they have to examine the same thoroughly and decide about the act of willful default. If they have not submitted any representation to justify, they have to justify the reason for confirming or rejecting the orders of the first committee, that is the identification committee. These are the 4 stages of declaring any borrower or a guarantor as willful defaulter. Then after declaring, that is the ID committee declares and the review committee confirms it and reviews it. After this process, the banks will report the list of these willful defaulters to the credit information companies. RBA has recognized 4 credit information companies presently, and the list will be circulated to these companies. The list of such borrowers with names and names shall be reported to these companies, and they in turn will furnish the information to all the lenders through their respective website. If during the proceedings, this is very important, during the proceedings, the borrower and guarantor arrives at a OTS, that is, during the process of classifying these parties as willful defaulters, if they want to settle the account under OTS, they can propose for the same. And if OTS is accepted by the bank and amount is remitted by these parties, then the bank need not report these names as willful defaulters, because the consequences after reporting are very serious under the RBI guidelines. So there is an option for the borrowers and guarantors to come out of this by submitting OTS and also paying the same. After payment only, they need not report. What are the penal measures given by the RBI in its circular after classification of these parties as willful default? They are all very serious. RBI, that is why, has clearly provided that the banks or the financial institutions shall ensure that a solitary or an isolated instance is not made the basis for initiating action for classifying the parties as willful defaulters. The reason being that once they are classified, the penal measures applied are very serious. That is, a single incident should not be a base for classifying them as a willful defaulter. Then we have to see when after the classification, whether it is based on a track record or based on any single event. No, these are the consequences. No additional facilities should be granted to the listed willful defaulters. Further, the companies which are declared as willful defaulters should be debarred from institutional finance for a period of 5 years from the date of removal of their name from the list of willful defaulters. That is, you have to see that after removal also, next 5 years, they are not entitled for any institutional finance. The legal process should be initiated expeditiously for recovery. Wherever necessary, the lenders may initiate criminal proceedings also. The lenders should adopt a proactive approach for change of management of willfully defaulting borrower unit. So when the borrower is classified as a willful defaulter, the lenders can even change the management. The lenders have to include in their agreement, loan agreement, to say that the borrowing company should not induct in its board a person whose name appears in the list of willful defaulters. Suppose such person is there in their board, the company has to remove them as expeditiously as possible, and effective steps have to be taken for this. Another consequence which is not provided in this RBI circular is that has happened subsequently under IBC, under section 29A. Under section 29A, any person classified as willful defaulter cannot become a resolution applicant. He cannot take over any of the companies. He cannot participate in any bid under IBC, in any CARP under IBC. So these are the consequences. Now we will see some relevant judgments. The entire RBI salient features we have already seen. Relevant judgments we will go through. First, actually, this RBI circular was introduced in the year 1999 with a lot of judgments. Some changes were evolved in due course, and after several changes, the present circular dated 1st July 2015 is complete in all respects. Now we will see whatever judgment passed after this circular date, that is 1st July 2015. The first judgment we'll take up is Supreme Court judgment, State Bank of India versus JAR Developers Private Limited. 2019 6 SCC 787. Judgment dated 8/5/2019. In this case, actually this is an appeal filed against the orders passed by the Delhi High Court, which said that the identification committee and the review committee of the bank is a judicial forum, and the borrower should be given, that is a party, the petitioner should be given a right to be represented through an advocate before these committees. Appeal was filed by the State Bank of India before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, the main question that arose before Supreme Court was that whether in the process of declaration of a person as a willful defaulter under the RBI circular, such person is entitled to be represented by a lawyer of his choice before such declaration is made. Supreme Court discussed various judgments on this issue on various subjects like Industrial Disputes Act and various state laws. Then the Supreme Court observed that The in-house committees of the bank, such as the identification committee and the review committee, cannot be considered as a tribunal for the reasons that the committees are not vested with any judicial power and the power exercised by them is only administrative. Then it cannot be said that RBI circular in any manner vests on the bank's committees any judicial power. And hence, the Supreme Court ruled that no lawyer can appear before them under Section 30 of Advocates Act. So the law becomes settled that no person can be allowed to be represented through a lawyer before these committees. Then, though this was the main question before the Supreme Court, the petitioner in the before the High Court alleged that he was not given proper opportunity to be represented through a personal hearing. But for this, all these issues were also dealt by Supreme Court in this decision, adverting to these related issues raised by these petitioner regarding the oral hearing to be given before declaration as willful defaulter, which was denied in this case. The court took a view that they just compared the provisions of RBI circular on the same subject, which was existing in 2013, and that the new between and the same provisions in the present circular, that is 17/2015. In the earlier circular dated 17/2013, there was a provision for personal hearing before the second committee. But here in the latest circular, there is a provision for personal hearing before the first committee. That too, discretion is given to the committee only to decide whether a personal hearing can be given to them or not. And regarding the second committee, there is no provision in this circular at all to give a personal hearing. So taking all these things into account, Supreme Court they expressed a view like this. That is, first and foremost, the identification committee, after following the procedures for declaration of the parties as willful defaulters under para 3B of the circular, they must give the order to the parties who are declared so as soon as it is made. Then, secondly, the borrower can then represent within 15 days. That also Supreme Court has mentioned. The borrower can then represent within 15 days to the review committee. Such written representation can be a full representation on facts and law. Then the review committee must then pass reasoned order on such representation, which must then be served on the borrower. The Supreme Court thus incorporated all these steps into the revised latest circular 1715. So the circular read with the procedures incorporated by Supreme Court forms the complete procedure for declaration of any person as a willful defaulter, and any deviation from the same is questionable before the courts. Now we will go to some High Court judgments. That is, Bombay High Court decided about not according personal hearing to the petitioner without according any reason for the same. The judgment is Kanchan Motors and others versus Bank of India and others. In this case, the division bench of Bombay High Court found that the bank had not followed the procedure as laid down in the RBI circular, especially on failure to supply the reasons by the identification committee for recording the fact that petitioner were in willful default, and as to why they need not be given an opportunity of personal hearing when the petitioners had raised. It is now well settled that reasons are the live links between the minds of the decision taken to the controversy in question and the decision or conclusion arrived at. Reasons substitute subjectivity to objectivity. Right to reason is an indispensable part of sound judicial system. The rationale is that the affected party can know why the decision has gone against him. One of the statutory requirements of the natural justice is spelling out reasons for the order made. In other words, a speaking order, that is a speaking order. Even in respect of administrative order, the giving of reasons is one of the fundamentals of good administration. High Court thus set aside the orders passed by the bank by which the petitioners were declared as willful defaulters, giving liberty to the bank to take fresh steps against the petitioners if they are so advised, keeping in view the observations of the court and also complying with the procedures as provided in the Reserve Bank of India circular. Then, ruling of Calcutta High Court in Pavan Kumar Patodia and others versus Union Bank of India and others. This is dated 5th February 2019. Manu WB 11115 2019. This is citation. In Pavan Kumar Patodia case, show cause notice was issued by the regional manager of the bank, who was in charge of the branch. This was questioned by the petitioner on the basis of the provisions of para 3 of the Reserve Bank of India circular. Para 3b says, if the committee concludes that an event of willful default has occurred, it shall issue a show cause notice to the concerned borrower and the promoter, whole-time director, and so on. So the stress has been given on the words, it shall issue a show cause notice. So petitioner argued that Reserve Bank of India circular confers power only on the committee to issue the show cause notice. Such power cannot be delegated. The bank argued that there is an internal policy according to which the committee identifies willful defaulters, and the regional manager in charge of the branch issued a show cause notice based on the directions of the committee, and it was not necessary that the committee itself should issue the notice. But the High Court struck down the argument of the bank and observed that identification of the event of willful default must be in terms of the master circular, and that the persons who issue the notice must be those authorized by the circular, and it cannot be delegated. The High Court further observed that any policy of the bank which is a deviation of the master circular will not help the bank, and the policy of the bank cannot be placed at a higher pedestal than the master circular of Reserve Bank of India. Then the court allowed the writ petition quashing the notice issued by the regional manager of the bank. In another writ petition in the same High Court, that is Calcutta High Court, Atlantic Projects Limited and others against Allahabad Bank. In this, similar verdict was passed by this court, that is subsequently on 3rd May 2019. Citation is 2019 SCC Online Calcutta 611. The writ petition was filed on the following main issues. What are the issues? We will see. That is, show cause notice issued by the bank through the Deputy General Manager recovery as against the committee, which is bad in law. Then the petitioner alleged that he had a right to be represented through an advocate before the committees. In this case, the same judge passed the judgment saying that the same thing, that the show cause notice should have been issued only by the committee. The court actually elaborately dealt in this case, saying that clause 3b of the circular requires application of mind by the committee at all stages. Therefore, the committee cannot delegate its power to issue the show cause notice. Regarding representation of the petitioner through a counsel, the court observed that the right of hearing before the committee is not automatic. It is based on the discretionary powers. The committee will use its discretion either to give a personal hearing or not. So it cannot be said that he can have a representation. Moreover, considering the judicial precedents, the court held that he does not have a right to be represented through a lawyer. High Court, however, quashed the show cause notice and directed the bank to issue a fresh notice if deemed necessary in accordance with law. Then we have Madras High Court judgment on this topic, where the show cause notice issued by the bank was set aside. This is Shankar Varadarajan and others versus State Bank of India. Justice Adi Kesavlu judgment. Here, identification of the court's findings were like this. Identification committee did not consider the objections of the party. Actually, for the show cause notice, the petitioner had given a detailed objections, but the contention is that the committee did not consider the objections at all. Then the review committee also passed orders just confirming the orders of the identification committee without giving any reason or any analysis. Then the bank argument in JAR developers was passed only subsequent to the orders they have passed declaring them as willful defaulter. For this, the court said that Supreme Court order is the law of the land from inception. Hence, the argument that it has no retrospective effect cannot be accepted. Finally, the court decided in this case that the order passed by the bank has to be set aside and the matter was remitted for fresh consideration. But it pertained only to the petitioner who had filed the writ petition, and the court was very specific, saying that others who were already declared, the order will continue. Then in another case, Kailash Sahara versus IDBI Bank Limited, Bombay High Court. This is 2022 AIR Bombay R594. Here, the show cause notice was issued in July 2017. The borrower replied in August 2017. The nominee director, who is a petitioner here, he replied in October 2017. The bank declared all of them as a willful defaulter in the review committee in December 2017. Then the petitioner proceeded again. Actually, this particular petitioner was proceeded against only because he had executed a guarantee. But the date of guarantee is May 2013. The contention that this date is prior to what is mentioned in the Reserve Bank of India circular was not taken in this case. It is missed out actually. But what contention the petitioners alleged was that he was only a nominee director. He was not a part of the management, day-to-day management of the company. And the bank did not give him any information as to how they decided to make him as a willful defaulter. For that, the bank said that the bank had written to the petitioner on several occasions, and they also provided him with the documentary proof. And in spite of that, he did not turn up for personal hearing. The company owes about more than 9,000 crores to the about 20 lenders, and they have huge borrowings. All these things they have not honored. These were the defenses placed before the court by the bank. But the court observed the copies of orders passed by the committee, both committees, were not served on the petitioner. For this, the court took for reference the judgment of JAR developers. Then, copies of documents laid on by the bank for declaring him as a willful defaulter was not given to the petitioner. The non-whole-time director was not liable unless it was proved that he was a part of day-to-day affairs. Unless he was provided with the documents relied upon, he could not have furnished his specific objections. That was the finding of the court. And finally, the court held that the bank had to share the copies of documents relied upon by them. And they directed the review committee to give a personal hearing and then decide on the matter. So, this was the orders passed by the Bombay High Court. Next, K. Paramasivam and others versus Reserve Bank of India, Madras High Court. CDJ 2020, Madras High Court, 117. Here, the petitioner had filed the case soon after the orders were passed by the identification committee. The documents relied upon by the bank were not provided to the petitioner. That was allegation by the petitioner. Then, the next issue for consideration was to allow representation through an advocate or a chartered accountant. For the first issue, that is the documents relied upon by the bank, the court directed that the bank had to part with the document immediately, and the bank gave copy of forensic audit report which was relied on by them to the petitioner. Then the court directed to initiate fresh proceedings complying with the RBI circular and the Supreme Court order in JAR developers. Then the court accepted the second contention of the petitioner that he had the right to be represented through an advocate or a chartered accountant. Then there is a case, recent case in which Calcutta High Court ordered penalty to the petitioner. Yes, here the petitioner filed a writ petition soon after the orders were passed by the identification committee. Here, the main contention was that in this case is Kejriwal Mining Private Limited versus Allahabad Bank, Calcutta High Court, judgment dated 26th June 2020. The show cause notice issued was in April 2019, seeking a reply within 15 days. By a letter dated 29th April, the petitioner asked for certain documents and clarifications. The bank permitted inspection of such documents, and they also gave some time for replying to the show cause notice. The time to give the reply to the show cause notice was extended several times, but he gave a reply after a long delay. After that, the bank fixed a personal hearing for 3rd July 2019. The petitioner again sought extension of the date by another 3 weeks, stating that he would be closing the account under OTS, which was approved by the bank way back in 2015. But this request of the petitioner was not taken up by the bank, and on 3/7/2019, the first committee declared the petitioner as willful defaulter, but clear reasons were given for declaring him as willful defaulter. Such decision was communicated to them in January 2020. An order passed in July 2019 was communicated to him in January 2020. So the party, the petitioner, filed a writ petition before the court. His main allegations were like this: that is, the show cause notice was issued by an assistant general manager of the bank who was not even a part of the committee, that is the identification committee. So it is bad in law. Then he said they were denied natural justice since their reply to the show cause notice was not considered by the committee while declaring them as willful defaulters. And the petitioner further alleged that the order of ID committee was cryptic and unreasoned, and it warranted interference of the court. For this, he took reference of another case, that is East India Laminates and another versus Union Bank of India. In this case, it was under Sarfasi Act. The bank had replied to a 1338 notice letter by the borrower in a very short and cryptic manner, in which the Calcutta High Court held that the reply cannot be considered as valid. He took for reference that case to say that the bank's notice was very short and cryptic, but he also denied on merits that he was a willful defaulter. Moreover, the delay in service of the orders of the first committee was also questioned by him in his petition. The bank's only argument was that the petitioner was free to represent before the review committee all these points, since the order of ID committee will become final only after it is confirmed by the review committee. Here the court's observations were: the petitioner sought adjournment several times for replying to the show cause notice, and the bank had given ample opportunities for inspection of the documents. The petitioner company availed loans by fraudulent mortgage of the property, which was already mortgaged to Indian Bank and Punjab National Bank. The order of the first committee, that is the identification committee, will have to be reviewed by another committee, and only then the order becomes effective. The order declaring the petitioner as willful defaulter was fully in consonance with the guidelines provided in RBI circular, and the show cause notice was amply clear as to the grounds for the same. Though the bank communicated the order of the identification committee with much delay, it is justified because the petitioner only created a lot of litigations based on which the delay had occurred. Then opportunity sufficiently was given to the petitioners. And court also said that the OTS procedure cannot be mixed with the process of declaration as willful defaulter. The orders of the court were that the writ petition was dismissed, and for unnecessary harassment caused to the bank and its offices, the petitioner was awarded costs of 50,000 rupees. But the court gave liberty to the petitioner to submit his representation before the review committee, provided that he paid the cost before a specified date, that is 6th July 2020, and he submitted his representations by 15th July 2020. The court also directed the bank to follow the procedures if representation was submitted by him within the specified time. But if they did not comply with the court directions, the review committee need not give a right of representation. The committee could proceed based on the documents and the orders of ID committee. These were the directions of the court in this case. So, while there are several judgments setting aside the orders passed by the bankers declaring the parties as willful defaulters, here is a judgment which says that the petitioner caused harassment to the bank's officials because a finality was not reached in the matter, because the matter was yet to be placed before the review committee. A short recap of the procedures, just point-wise we'll see. First, they have to bank has to identify willful defaulter, and then the identification committee has to decide and issue a show cause notice based on the documentary evidence collected. Then once a decision is arrived at and the committee comes to a conclusion that there is an act of willful default, the notice shall be issued to all the parties concerned, that is a borrower, guarantor based on the date of guarantee, then specifying the time limit within which they have to reply. Since there are decisions by the high courts on the issue that notice has to be issued by the committee only, then one of its members on behalf of the committee has to issue notice. Otherwise, it is a deviation and it can be questioned before the courts of law. Then the show cause notice clearly set out. It has to clearly set out the reason for suggesting the parties as willful defaulters without any ambiguity. Copy of the documents relied upon, at least the part of the document based on which these people are being questioned as a willful defaulter, has to be sent along with the show cause notice. Then service has to be ensured, proper service has to be ensured. Then the party can reply to the show cause notice, and the bank identification committee, with or without giving a personal hearing, can declare them as willful defaulter based on the documentary proof and written representation, if any. And thereafter, the orders of the identification committee has to be sent to the parties with a opportunity for them to represent before the review committee. Minimum 15 days time has to be given to them to submit their representation before the review committee. Then once it is submitted before the review committee, it has to examine and see whether there is an actual act of willful default. And after examining all the required factors, they can confirm or review the orders passed by the identification committee. And then it has to be reported to the credit information companies. These are all about a classification of the borrowers or guarantors as willful defaulters. Now, a connected note is publication of the photograph of willful defaulters. There are varied decisions by various high courts regarding publication of the photograph of defaulting borrowers. Earlier, it was only defaulting borrowers, because if the borrower continuously defaulted, then the banks indiscriminately wanted to, they published the photographs of some borrowers. Then this resulted in a lot of litigations. Different high courts have given different verdicts. Then this issue was set rest by Reserve Bank of India circular dated 29th September 2016. Reserve Bank of India made it very clear that photograph of only willful defaulters can be published after following the prescribed procedures. That is, only after declaring, a bank declares a person as a willful defaulter, they can take a decision either to publish his photograph or not. For a normal defaulter, photograph cannot be published. Reserve Bank of India addressed a circular to all the commercial banks and the notified financial institutions, directing like this: the lending institutions shall formulate a policy with the approval of their board of directors, clearly setting out the criteria based on which the decision to publish the photograph of a willful defaulter will be taken by them, so that the approach is neither discriminatory nor inconsistent. It means only those declared as willful defaulters, photograph can be published. Then, what is the legal position on publication of photograph? We have one Madras High Court recent judgment in Mohan Breweries and Distilleries Limited versus Authorized Officer State Bank of India, State Bank of Mysore, pronounced in 2018 April. That is, the borrower questioned the threat of the bank in the demand notice under Section 13(2) of SARFAESI Act about publication of his photograph if repayment was not made. The division bench of Madras High Court dealt with the right to privacy in detail, while also quoting various precedents, including Supreme Court judgment on secrecy and confidentiality. The High Court finally decided the case in favor of the bank. The findings of the High Court were like this: that is, SARFAESI Act requires publication of possession notice and sale notice. There is no express prohibition in SARFAESI Act for publication of photographs of willful defaulters. Right to Information Act in Section 3 requires a public authority to disclose information in public interest. If borrowers could find newer and newer methods to avoid repayment of loans, the banks are also entitled to invent novel methods to recover their dues. Madras High Court took to its support several judgments in this regard, including one Supreme Court judgment. That is in SLP number only I have reported in CDJ 2014 Supreme Court 617, confirming the Bombay High Court judgment in that regard. So all the above cases quoted by Madras High Court, they were all in favor of the banks for publication of their photographs. The common observation only was that the banks should not publish the photograph of in a routine manner, and that only after examining the facts and circumstances, photo publication can be made with clear justification, that too of willful defaulters only and not ordinary defaulters. So there are no shortcut methods in adopting the procedure detailed by the Reserve Bank of India in its master circular for classifying any person as a willful defaulter, or also for photograph publication of the willful defaulters. That's all about this topic, and I'm now ready for the questioning session.
Thank you, ma'am. If anyone has any questions, they can either post it in the chat box or they can use the raise hand option in Zoom, and then I would unmute you and you can ask your question to ma'am.
Very good evening, everyone. Very nice session, madam. Thank you very much. Very exhaustive and elaborate in a very short and sweet time. Thank you so much. One query, ma'am. Regarding this willful defaulter, they are doing this technically written off clause across over it is top 50. When I read the last April, have been technically written off to the tune of 68,000 crore. So, what is the status as of now, madam?
Sir, actually, it has got no relevance with the classification of the borrower as a willful defaulter. Technically, writing off is based on some prudential norms allowed by Reserve Bank of India to the banks. It has got no relevance regarding recovery. It is it will be removed from the books, but just for the banks have to proceed for recovery against these accounts also. It is just removal of the amount from the books. That's all. Doesn't mean that the recovery action will be stopped. That is writing off doesn't mean that the bank will write off completely and that they will forget about the account. No, it is removal of this amount from the book. That's all. They will continue their event. It will be called recovery from the written off accounts. Recovery action will be continued. That has got no relevance with the classification of a borrower or a guarantor as a willful defaulter.
Fine, madam. One more question. During this COVID, the restructuring, COVID restructuring, how does it relate to this? Are they giving any leniency in terms of making them willful default, or is it something different?
There is no specific guideline for showing any leniency for declaring the borrowers or guarantors as willful defaulter, but it is based on many banks are giving concession based on the pandemic consequences. So the borrowers can avail the opportunity and repay. If the default is during this pandemic period, whatever guidelines the Reserve Bank of India has given, that will follow. That will be applicable. That's all. For repayment, they are given some moratorium. Some time to...
correct. That means that they have some kind of yardstick to measure between willful defaulter during this pandemic, apart from pandemic.
Yes, sir. If the default has happened prior to this pandemic period, then there is no help, that they have to repay. That's all. If the default has happened during this pandemic period, then the RBI itself has given a moratorium.
Thank you very much.
By all the banks.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your question, and thank you, ma'am, for answering it. Now, I invite Mr. Ashok Pati, advocate in the Madras High Court, to give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, one and all. Again, I thank Study Circle for giving me this opportunity. Madam, the topic was willful defaulters, and you had made full justice to the topic. In fact, it is a tough topic to talk on because always the sympathy goes towards the defaulters and not for the persons who are collecting it. And finding out judgments and with your rich experience in the banking sector, you were able to pinpoint every other judgment and find out various aspects and get the crux of the issue and share it with us. Thank you so much for sharing with us the knowledge that you had acquired all these years. I also thank all the participants for being present and actively participating. Thank you one and all, and we'll again meet in the next session.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This marks the end of the session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.